Great. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Senate Education. It is Wednesday, April 7th at 4 p.m. We are continuing our conversation on S-114, the Senate's literacy bill, which now has become the House and Senate's literacy bill with the good work of House Education that has made a number of different suggestions. Senators may recall, we went through this bill yesterday with Mr. Demarais with the side-by-side. That side-by-side is still up on our website, or if people want to reference it. I've asked Ms. Myers and Representative Webb to come in today. Ms. Myers, senators will recall, is with the Superintendents Association and was very helpful in both the House and the Senate when drafting this work. And Representative Webb's committee has been working on this issue for many years now, and appreciate her being with us as well. In talking with Representative Webb and Ms. Myers, it seems to make the most sense for Ms. Myers to actually start and to respond, if you will, to some of what sort of where we're at now, if you will. We have some suggested changes. We are in a moment of trying to work through different things to see if we can get to a good point where we might not have to go to a committee of conference and continuing this conversation. So, Representative Webb, in my conversation with her yesterday, she is going to respond to, and just plug in where she feels it is needed and where she would like to, so we can have a pretty fluid conversation for a little bit on this bill and see if we can hammer out some differences. So with that, Ms. Myers, how does that feel to you?
Sure.
Okay. And I should mention, Ms. Myers has been talking both with the House and the Senate and helping us navigate this. So I don't know if you need any additional information from the committee, Ms. Myers. In other words, one thing I could say is I think you know where some of our concerns lie, and so does Representative Webb, around the grant program. So that might be a place to start, if you would, and give us your thoughts in general.
Yeah, so I think it probably makes most sense to just go through things with the core components. So we could start with the grant process, then move to the statute, that there's a difference between how you're handling the statute, the revision of the statute on literacy. The review of the licensure program seems to be about the same on each side. So let's start with the grant program.
Okay, sounds good.
So it's my understanding that the Senate Education Committee would like to direct the funds to the Agency of Education, whereas the House would like to direct it to the Agency of Education, but then to grant out to school districts. I'll just comment based on conversations that I've had with Chair Webb and Chair Campion, that the House Ed bill started at a time before COVID, before federal funds were coming in. So we're in a very different place now. They have structured a really beautiful grant program with a lot of really great methods in to changing structures around literacy, especially as they relate to Act 173. And I don't think that those should necessarily be lost. I think the connection to Act 173 is really important. However, we are at a time now where school districts are receiving a lot of ESSER funds, and I'm not sure that the urgency to apply for a grant, especially if that grant has a lot of requirements and reporting, that would be a priority for systems right now. So I think that's something to think about as you're navigating this. I do believe that Mr. Demarais talked to the House about potentially allocating money, ESSER money, but then in the S-114 kind of talking about how the Agency of Education might spend that money, or directing some core components of how the Agency of Education might be able to spend that money as it relates to literacy. Mr. Demarais, is that correct, that they could keep the money in the ESSER appropriations, and then specify how the Agency of Education spends those funds in that bill in SY 14.
Yeah, so for the record, Jim Denver, let's counsel. That was my understanding in House Education, and that's how the bill has been drafted in terms of use of funds. Although Secretary French testified yesterday, I believe, that he wants to look at that question once the bill is in a more final stage. So without caveat, I believe the answer to your question is yes.
So I think it's a matter of reconciling those two methods of either granting out to school systems themselves or being a little less prescriptive in the process and giving it to the Agency of Education. And again, I really want to recognize the great work that the House Ed Committee has done. It started in a time that we were not ever expecting to be in. So things have changed a little bit.
So given that change, Representative Webb, were you going to say something?
Yes, I will say that when we started working on this last year, we were looking at a 2-year grant program using Ed Fund dollars, passed it out of committee, and then we hit COVID and it died of COVID. In addition, the Ed Fund was looking terrible when we left last year. So this year when we started, just think about where we were. We had just basically gotten the December vote for ESSER, whatever that one was, 2, I think that was 2. And by the time it got to you, we were just looking at ESSER 3. So I think stopping to acknowledge that the times are changed, that we're now looking at, I'm looking at this as we've got 400 million extra dollars going to schools. So I would actually say, is the grant program the best way to go in terms of sending it to schools? I think that that's a question on the table. I think that we ended up working on this because we heard that the Senate Appropriations was so anxious to get it going. Whereas we had actually not seen that level of urgency because so much money was coming. So if there's a way, I mean, I think that, we took it this far, you've got it now. If we can slow down that process a little bit and not feel that anxiety that need to get it going, I think that there's a lot of maybe better use of that money than doing the grant program. Now I have to take that back to my committee, but I agree that we have a lot different information now, and I think we should use that information. So I'm very comfortable. We have the same goal. And ours is focused really on the implementation of Act 173 and really keeping that at the forefront. But in terms of how we get there, I'd say let's have that conversation.
Ms. Myers, do you have a recommendation, given that I think you're absolutely right, the House did incredible work before the pandemic. We're just in this different stage right now. I think one of our concerns yesterday had to do with, would there be school districts that wouldn't be equipped to apply? Would there be school districts that would be leaving dollars on the table because they don't have the time, the people power to put applications together? At the same time, I think Representative Webb's good point around, we want people to come up with plans and really have organized, thoughtful conversations. Can you help us get to a happy medium on this?
I can try.
Okay.
So I think I can't speak for the Agency of Education, but I think it based on their testimony, they would prefer it to go to the Agency of Education and them to kind of use their data and their knowledge to allocate it based on their expertise. If you would, I'm assuming that the money, the $4 million is still going to be appropriated to literacy.
Yes.
I also would need to check with perhaps the Act 173 group could connect some of this money and make recommendations to the Agency of Education about how that funding is spent on literacy and how it can connect to the Act 173 structures. You have a lot of expertise in that room already sitting there. And I think it would take a statutory change to just add to their charge that has already been extended a couple of times, I believe, I would have to check in with their chair, Megan Roy, but it seems like if you have that panel already established and the objective is to connect literacy to the structures of Act 173, that might be an avenue to consult with the Agency of Education on how to best spend those funds as it relates to literacy.
Representative Webb, are you comfortable with that if we move in that direction?
No, I think Act 173 group it's a very good group. They're effective. They know what's going on. I would be interested in their recommendations because, again, it's getting to that core major bill that we passed that is really designed to change the way that we deliver education to students who struggle in a comprehensive systems-wide basis.
So if this committee were to work on language that, again, connects the dollars that would go to AOE to Act 173, that's within the comfort zone of, okay, great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Great. Jim, you're there and thinking that about language for something like that.
I am.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to, we're working on all your bills right now.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to work on that language and share it, and I can bring it over to S114, see if we can wrap that up, and then we can all have a party.
Yeah. No, that's what we're thinking. If we could get some of this stuff over to you, and then and absolutely on the party front, no question about it.
And then you'll be able to keep H101 as a vehicle should there be some last minute
Great.
something coming in.
Okay, great.
And we might end up holding the miscellaneous ed bill for any transportation we might need. We're zeroing in on that one right now, and
well, that was a big, what we just discussed was, I think, one big thing. The very big thing is, making certain that we can get these dollars out to schools in that quick, efficient way. And it sounds like we've got something. AOE in consultation with the 170, is it 173?
173
working group. So that's great. Okay, Ms. Myers, please continue.
I also just want to recognize too that group consists of parent network representatives and disability law project and administrators. So you're covering a lot of bases there already. The only last step is making sure you check with Megan Roy, who's the chair of that, to see if they can handle that kind of thing. But I know they've done a lot of thinking about it already, so it seems like a natural fit.
Thank you.
Should we move on to the next portion? Please. So I believe it's the 16 VSA 2903, amending the statute now that's currently on reading instruction, and the Senate bill has it amended right within the bill with the work that you've done, and then the House has recommended that the council amend it. And I think you could do both, or you could do either or. You could do the changes that kind of switch from reading to literacy that you recommended in your bill in the Senate Ed bill. Sorry, I'm trying to keep them all straight. And then the House Ed bill could continue to say we're going to have the council make recommendations. So there could be this change now, and then later the council could make more substantive recommendations based on the work that they do.
Yeah,
or you could do either or.
We saw that as a sleepy little section of law that needed to wake up.
Which council are you talking about?
The Literacy Council.
The council established, I think both of you have it in your bill, to establish a literacy council at the state level.
So I need more clarification. So if we're thinking about the Literacy Council, what exactly, what are you proposing again?
So the House Ed has in their bill a charge that Literacy Council would be responsible for amending or making recommendations for amendments on 16 VSA 2903, which is the current statute on literacy instruction. Okay. So if they made recommendations, I think you'd get more expertise in terms of being able to coherently think about the vision for the state of Vermont on literacy and make recommendations rather than amending it right at this moment in your bill, which is what is currently in the Senate Ed bill.
We saw maybe just letting the experts have a stab at that.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to us.
But again, you could do both, like make these small changes now if you wanted to, and then take recommendations from the council later.
Committee, any preference? Yes, Senator Purcell?
Jim, is that council language in the side-by-side or do I have to go to the bill? I don't see it. Oh, maybe it is in here.
It's there, yeah.
In different places.
Yeah,
It's on page
23.
16. It starts, I think. 2903, Advisory Council on Literacy.
I'm just looking at who it is again. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we have, excuse me, I'm sneezing, so if I stop. We had the students in ours.
Oh, right.
Um,
Is that the only difference?
No, there's some membership differences. That's one of the big, yeah, that's one of the big differences.
I have different pagination than you do, Senator Purcell, because I've got a different version of this side-by-side. Rep. asked me to add a third column for H101, but if you're looking at your version, if you can find the part that deals with powers and duties of the council, it's subsection D. The difference in language is that your bill has the council advising the State Board of Education on how to update sorry.
No problem.
The proposal by House Education has the council advising the state board how to update section 2903. And your bill, we've already done that in your bill. You've updated that section, so you don't have that as a council with duty.
You've written it in your section 3. You've updated it.
Yeah.
And in ours, we just had the council do it.
I'm just trying to find who we said is on the council. I guess I can't.
Oh, who's on the council? Sorry. Okay, I got a different pagination than you do, but we've got
Page 17, 16
Yeah.
and 17.
yeah, you got different members. So you've got 18 members and House recommendation is 15 members.
Okay.
Do you have it there? Yeah.
Yep.
I would like to correct the record of one thing that was said yesterday, was that Representative Brady didn't want students on this. That is not accurate. We discussed, we were trying to bring down the number of, based on our appropriations and also the functioning of group, we tried to bring down some of the numbers. So we figured that you could put some students in the community members if you wanted the people with experience with dyslexia. We added someone with, in the community members that have had experience with challenges in reading. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the language, so I can't quote it very well. We added someone with expertise in dyslexia.
I think that's great to add personally. With regard to the students, I mean, I can just speak for myself. One of the things this committee's been working on or have had many conversations around civic education and how can we specifically get young people involved in our processes. And that's why, in part, we thought it would be great to hear specifically from students.
And that's fine. I'm just looking for this. I don't know if I'm missing something. Am I missing a page? Well, I put them in the wrong order. Members of the council. Okay, yeah, so we had, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble. Let me put it this way. You need to have people with lived experiences with dyslexia. I will also tell you, but don't tell my committee this. This is a secret just between those here.
Great.
I took out a few members figuring everyone was going to add them back.
Okay.
And it didn't happen. So,
Well, let's just hope
but that's
that,
a secret. Okay.
yeah, well, hopefully they're not watching this. We're not live right now. Just ignore that.
Right.
But
So yeah, I think you have to have someone with lived experience. You have to have lived experience if you want
Sure.
that to be a student or a graduating,
yeah. Okay, so we can work on some of that. Senator Perchlik.
Okay, now that I've figured that out,
Yeah.
I could go either way. I'd like the students just to give the students experience more than anything, but I like the idea of making it smaller. They can work better if it's smaller. But given that, now that I remind myself what it is, who is on there, I think Chelsea's idea of just making those small changes, reading the literacy, and then I'm okay with the council being the ones that decide how it, the details of how we should change the statute as the House proposed. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Anybody else, anybody against moving in that direction? Okay, Ms. Myers.
So my next point was the difference between the membership of the council. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you all want to talk about that now, or you
I
feel like
think we're-
you have it resolved.
I think we're in good shape. We'll keep it smaller and somehow, Jim, specify, we want to make sure that there's somebody in there that is an expert on dyslexia and has, some experiences. Senator Perchlik?
Well, when I looked through the list, and I'm sure they could convince me otherwise, but I wondered about the School Board Association. Obviously, they're involved in everything in the schools, but I just wondered, when I think of what the school boards do, I don't see them as involved in that kind of level of pedagogy. And, maybe they want to be involved, but I can't remember if they wanted to be involved or we just went through our regular cast of characters and put them all in there.
I'm pretty sure we went through our regular, instead of cast of characters, we'll say professional advocates. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's what we said. I don't think they were married to the idea of being in there. So that is one area that we could say we could pull them out, and that does make it tighter. Yes, Ms. Myers.
I would just say if there's anything to do with policy in there, they should be involved. The other added benefit is that it's a way to, it's a community member, and the overall visioning, like if we think about this from a systems perspective, the overall visioning is the responsibility of the board. So it might seem like a stretch, but I think if any policy is included in the council's charge, that they should be on the team.
Okay. Maybe what we could do then, because we could talk about the makeup for a while, we could work, maybe Representative Webb and I could work with Mr. Demaray and try to get to a happy point, comfortable point with the council, and include just knowing that we want student voices there, we want people with lived experiences there, and we don't want to, in keeping in mind that these policies are going to intersect with the V's and others. So I think that's good to know. Okay, please continue.
So I believe that there's not any differences between the licensing and relicensing review. So we'll skip that. I'm sorry, I'm not going in order. I'm going by my brain.
No, that's
so if
fine.
we're skipping around, I apologize. And then I think the last thing to discuss that there are differences between is the position, and how that all kind of changed with the grant manager, and then it turned from a grant or a program manager to contracted service. And that kind of happened in appropriations. And so I want to bring up the conversation of a position again. And I know that there are significant financial concerns and nuances with the ESSER money coming in and what it can be used for. But I will say, I think it is important to recognize that statewide leadership on literacy, like a person or a division, like if you look at many state agencies around the country, especially those that have made huge literacy efforts in the last few years, they have whole divisions related to literacy. And so I think just a person to touch all kind of avenues situated in the agency of education makes a strong message. So I would like to open up the conversation again and understand that there are fiscal concerns as well as the concern about being able to hire a person in a timely manner. So maybe it's a hybrid of the two solutions somewhere in
I
there.
think Representative Webb and I, and correct me if I'm wrong, Representative, feel that the hybrid, I mean, I think we both agree that there is the need to have that person at the helm throughout the state. You mentioned, Chelsea, if we were to get on the Massachusetts state education website, they have all sorts of literacy experts and people within their agency. And we would be starting by, again, getting somebody that the level who reports to the Secretary of Education. But also recognizing there might be a transition in terms of getting that person. In other words, something could be done now for the next couple of years, but we need to get that person in place as soon as possible. And I think some of this will come down to a conversation with our appropriations committees and making the case saying, listen, this is a big deal. This is a game changer. Having somebody who is at the helm that we can continue to pull into our committees over the next decade to ask for updates, it's really important. I mean, we can't be asking, others to do this work. Representative Webb.
So when we passed 173 in 2018, one of the people sitting in our room all the time, helping us with this with amazing expertise, was the deputy secretary. There were 2 deputy secretaries. That year, they got rid of that position. So we basically lost the main brain trust on pre-K 12 for this kind of work. Amy Fowler was the person that worked there, and her loss in terms of where we were going with 173 was significant. At the same time, so we lost the deputy secretary. The CFO moved to another agency. The general counsel retired. The special ed director retired. And the counsel for special ed retired. So there were 5 major people in that agency that had a tremendous amount of information in 2018. So I would very much like to see, another, Amy Fowler position in that agency. I don't know how they ended up just striking that position. Rebecca Holcomb left. So there was so much change that was going on that year that was really fell, and some of the work here fell. So I know that our committee had put it in as a position, but the Appropriations Committee did take it out. If there is a way to hybrid something, I mean, if we're going to be using some money to do some real professional, large-scale support, for districts to upgrade their whole system. And we could have someone at the agency that's overseeing that. I think your challenge is going to be to find someone who will take that for just 3 years.
Yeah, I agree.
We're looking for a PhD.
It's a great point. We have to really recognize and I think carve out the money. And I think we should have a conversation with Senator Kitchell and Representative Hooper on this to make sure that we can really take this forward. Otherwise, I agree, it's going to get dropped. It's in the work is too important. Senator Persley.
Yeah, I totally agree with both the chairs there, and I almost feel like the council and the $3 million for the grant program aren't worth doing almost if you can't have a coordinator to really focus the work and keep it going. So, my hope would be that it would be longer than 3 years, but I understand often they do a limited service, but.
I think it has to be permanent. I mean, we have to think about this because I think Representative Webb's point's a good one. We're going to get the best of the best. Sure, we might get lucky and that person might be in Vermont and but if you're going to move here, you want a position that is going to continue is just going to be ongoing. Senator Lyons.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely astounded that 5 positions have disappeared. So usually when that happens, they're held vacant. So my question would be for the secretary about those vacancies that exist right now, and that we should be defining the need. We have to fill one of those vacancies with this position. So I don't know if Representative Webb knows more about this.
Those vacancies have been filled other than the deputy secretary. There's only one deputy secretary. I mean, maybe you really only need one deputy secretary, but why that position couldn't have moved down was a surprise to a lot of us.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, I think we are in a good spot. I think we've ironed out differences. And Mr. Demaray, do you have the information that you need?
I have the information I need on the grant program and on section 2903.
Right.
You're going to talk to Chair Webb about the makeup of the council.
That's right.
No influence, a few sections. Aside from that, in this position, obviously, as the agency is an open question. There are some other differences, though. So, excuse me. You have different, a few differences. One difference is that you've got the Board of Education updating the statewide plan, and one on one side, on your side, Senate side, and you've got the agency doing that work on the House side. In consultation,
Please.
both in consultation with the council.
Yeah.
Because who's taking the lead on that is one open question still. At the very end,
Jim, just pause for a moment. Senator
Yeah.
Lang, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking while Jim was talking, wait, I have to turn my phone off there, sorry. That if we fill that position, then it would make eminent sense for the work with the council to go to the new person, the new position, and the planning go in that way.
Mhm.
And I don't know why the board would then have to be doing that.
I agree, to have it go to the new person in the Agency of Education. I think the House is accurate. I think they have more of the information and they have the ability to advance this. Ms. Myers, anyone else?
I just want to be clear, we're talking about the statute now? The change
No.
to the sta-
no,
or
we're
we talking-
talking about updating the literacy plan.
which is 2903.
Yeah, it's in 23, but it's already in law. So there's a section here that I'm trying to find it because my pagination is different than yours, but it's a section that requires the statewide literacy plan required by 2903 to be updated. And on the one hand, you've got the state board doing it. On the other hand, you've got the agency doing it. So the question is which one to go with.
I have no opinion on that.
Okay. Senator Perchley.
The House had the agency.
Yes.
The agency, yeah. I think so too. I think that makes sense. I think it's the way to go. So let's move it to the agency.
And then the other difference was at the very end of the side by side, there's difference in reporting requirements. And the one the House used is based on the Agency of Education's recommendation. So I'll have the page number for you again, but it's section 12 of S114 as proposed by House Education. And it's section 9 of your S114. Want to take a look at those two and just
So what's I'm looking at them. What's the big difference here?
So looks like on the House side they've got they've got quarterly reports. So they're doing quarterly reports from July of this year through July of next year. Okay. That's House version. Senate version is they're doing a report once in December of 21 and again in December of 22 and 23. So it's quarterly reports on the one hand for a year versus 3 years of reporting in your bill. That's the main difference.
That was just what the AOE gave us. So we
Okay.
just took it.
I'd like to give them a little more time, but I'm open to, if this is what that's the only thing I was thinking, Representative Webb, is can that first one, well, they pushed for July 1, 2021?
They gave us the language, so I took it.
Okay. Anybody object to the agency's recommendations for the report, since they are the ones who are advocating for that? Okay, I think.
Wait, okay, can you remind me what's in the report? Jim maybe could do that.
Sure. The report that they recommended is on the status of implementation under this act, so
Oh.
under 114,
Mhm.
and on any other COVID-19 related topics relevant to your policy jurisdiction.
Ms. Myers, I'm sorry, Senator Lyons.
No, I'm agnostic.
Ms. Myers.
I don't know what they'll be able to report in July. So it might make more sense to give them a little bit more time. I think it would just be, we're getting started if you had a report in July.
Are you okay with the first one coming in December 2021, Representative Webb? Okay, fine. We'll do that.
I'm with Senator Lyons.
Okay.
Okay. So what I can do is I can update the, what I think I would do is update the House proposal
Yes.
with what we know. I won't update yet, obviously, on what we don't know, which is the membership and the position, but I can get pretty far with it.
Great. And Representative Webb, if you don't mind staying on after we adjourn, you and I can hammer out the membership a little bit and have Mr. Demarais right here. And then I can run it by the committee for a final look tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be at a chair's meeting, but
Or I'll just ask you,
Yeah.
ask you for a little bit of direction after we adjourn.
that's not going to be a big one. Could I just make just one recommendation to consider? Have you had DMG in to talk about that? We got so much of the vision of what we were looking for children who struggle to learn. And so much of the vision that we got from them when we developed 173. So if you're interested in really looking at a vision, they do a really nice job. So if you have time and want to hear from Nate Levinson, and if you don't, you don't, but it really sort of gives you an idea of the vision that we're looking at.
Great. Thank you. Committee, it was a long afternoon, but I think a productive one. Any final questions? I'll loop to Senator Kitchell today and stay on with Representative Webb, and then we'll also hear back from Mr. Peralt on Ms. Parker, I believe, on CTE funding. Anything else that anybody else wants to raise at this point? Final questions? Okay, yes, Senator Hooker, please.
Just that the conversation about positions sort of brings up the idea that we're still looking for a diagram of the Agency of Education's positions and where they are. So
yeah, and so this was one of the things I want to talk to Mr. Demarais about is some language that I'll bring to the committee also about an audit. Really putting us on the path to understanding the agency's size, the direction it should be moving in, helping give future legislators, I think, a blueprint and the agency a blueprint in terms of needs and areas to improve, because I think no one is feeling as though they're they're well equipped now to do everything that we need them to do. So. Great. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great afternoon, great evening. Thanks, Ms. Myers. That was a big help. You're a great mediator.
Thank you. Take
Thank you,
care.
everybody. Nice to
Thanks for
see
having me.
you.
Good to see you.
Okay, so
Okay.
that was very productive.
Am I ending live?